We now return to Let's Play Suzerain. I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of getting tired of this game. I have been burnt out on it, and I just don't want to play it anymore. So let's try and get through it as quickly as we can from now on. Budget allocation of the armed forces. To determine the current situation of the military and its spending policy, we held a meeting in the White Room. Peter, Vulcan, and Yosef were seated. Peter, General Vulcan, Mr. Lancia, let's start with the briefing. Very well, Mr. Vice President. We have prepared a briefing to convey further details about the current situation of our military. First off, we've received an updated communication from the Arcasian Military Command. Their planes are being moved into Earlery Air Base as we speak, under our supervision, of course. Okay, make sure we keep an eye on them. Of course, Mr. President. Now let's move on to our military. Which branch would you like to know about? What's the situation of the Army? According to the latest reports from Camp Strong Arm, currently we field 6 armies totaling approximately 400,000 active troops, which is a good amount. The real issue we're having is the quality, not quantity. Okay, what's current equipment status? Our army is quite outdated by today's military standards. Most of our equipment is 2 decades old. To make up for our lack of modern military equipment, we resort to a large number of soldiers, which is not really a long-term solution. I've been trying hard to reduce the negative effects of this problem. We don't need a modernization program. A standardized purchase of lacking equipment will do. We need more funding towards expanding the military size, otherwise our army will be seen as weak. Be seen as weak, or is actually weak? I mean, guerrilla tactics could probably help a lot. Where exactly is our army deployed right now? The First Army is stationed at the Lesbia and Wayland borders to protect the way into the central regions of Sordland. The Second Army, our strongest force, has been situated by the Rumburg border. The Second Army has a large mountain commando force, and it is the best equipped army because they are facing Rumburg. The Third Army near the Agnolian border and coastal areas facing Vogsland. Due to our bitter past, we generally keep a coastal defense force, although many years ago the decimation of our fleet still is not forgotten. How do we compare to other armies? Rumburg fields about 6 armies amounting to 1 million soldiers. Lesbia fields 5 armies which amount to 800,000 soldiers. Vogsland fields an army of 140,000 soldiers. Really, that's it? I was expecting Vogsland to be a little bit more. Wayland fields an army amounting to 100,000 soldiers, and Agnolia fields 2 armies with a total of 200,000 soldiers. The sheer size of Rumburg's army is because of their forced conscription laws. Due to their massive gold reserves, they're able to afford it. On the other hand, the Lesbian army is the most advanced, followed by the Vogslandian army. Both of these countries put lots of money in modernizing their military. Okay, tell me about another branch. What about the Navy? Our Navy currently constitutes 59 ships with a total of 60,000 sailors and support staff. As you know, these ships are commanded from our main naval base in Conriat, where our flagship, the SN Renan, is docked. How does our Navy compare to others? Our Navy is dwarfed by the size of the Vogslandian Navy, which has 194 ships, Jesus Christ, and the Agnolian Navy, which has 81 ships. We only surpass Lesbia in terms of our navy, as they have less than 30 ships. As you see, the situation is dire, but the solution is not just more ships. To make a truly better navy, we need to equip our ships with modern radar and sonar systems. More outdated ships wouldn't mean much. Which seas do our navy currently patrol? We're patrolling the Marchian Sea, the Grey Strait, and the Antician Sea. Our Navy protects all our coastal regions, however, to make sure that we are not thinning out our defense. We prioritize certain regions over others, like Greater Holsword. We often patrol the routes that are close to the shipping lanes, especially Marchian Sea and Grey Strait. The amount of cargo that goes through that area is eye-opening. Another thing to note is, after the takeover of Helgeland, where our Navy has led incursion operations to protect Agnolia, we also take part in some joint Navy drills as well. Let's hear about other branches of the armed forces. When did this come in? Let's hear about other branches. Provide details on the Air Force. Our Air Force currently has 410 planes in the inventory, out of which only 140 are jet planes that are not in great condition. 30,000 pilots and support staff work in the Air Force, and they are commanded from the Mark Air Force Base in Earlery. What are our operational capabilities? Our planes can bomb targets within 400 kilometers of the airfield. They have medium range and semi-effective nighttime bombing capabilities. At any time, we can field 7 air wings composing a total of 130 aircraft that can operate in combat duty. This is enough to subdue most targets. In terms of our bombing capability, we have an average of 100 meters of precision. This is not great, but it's still within the effective radius of the bombs. How experienced are the pilots? Our pilots have average experience. They have a total of 450 hours flight time with their craft before they're qualified. This gives them more than enough time to get used to it. This is low compared to 1,000 or even 1,500 hours in other countries like Arcasia, United Contana, Lesbia, and even Vogsland. Normally the hours per pilot should be higher, but due to the lack of funding, we can't increase the training times. Fuel costs are rather high. How does our Air Force work together with other military branches? The Air Force is trained as an independent tactical support branch, which means it assists other branches but doesn't collaborate. This does cause some issues like friendly fire and missed close air support opportunities. There are ways to improve collaboration with joint operation rooms, something to think about surely. What other branches are there to talk about? Let's move on. Yosef clears his throat. The Ministry of Defense is disappointed about the lack of additional funds. We knew that keeping the same budget for the military would cause some concern from you. I mean, has it been well funded? They're going to disagree with both of these. And I don't want to promise more shit to people. Resources were needed elsewhere. The military has always been well funded. We live in a geostrategic region with potential volatility. Once war or conflict comes knocking, that is when you'll realize. We know there have been high hopes, but the President has made his decision to prioritize other branches. We're stuck between a rock and a hard place without money. The military suffers from budget overextension in order to keep up with other countries. Yosef let out a long sigh. What now? No use complaining now, Vulcan. Let's look at what we can do with what we have. Yes, I believe I told you to do that the last time we had a meeting. I've been planning to improve the quality of the armed forces by buying better military equipment. How would that be possible without funds? It won't be. There is one way. If we relieve half the forces, that could create enough of a surplus that we could invest in new equipment. Go on. Vulcan's eyes widened. We're barely matching the size of half our neighbors, while the other half have armies 2 times bigger than ours. How on earth would discharging half the armed forces and buying new gear solve our defense issues? Like, from the very beginning, we're never going to be ahead. We cannot field 1 million troops. I mean, this is my own personal belief, but I don't know. I guess I could say this is a valid question, though. Gives him a chance. Yeah, whatever. Vulcan raises valid questions. Quality over quantity is the right strategy for the future of warfare. Having a large force doesn't necessitate superiority. I suppose we could go into chemical warfare. Why not? The reduction of the army would cause more unemployment, which could hurt the administration. What do you think, Mr. President? At this point, I honestly don't know. I think having large amounts of poorly equipped troops is basically like Stalin's Russia in World War II. We're going to send one guy out with the gun and one guy out with the bullets. But reducing our numbers, I mean, with better equipment, okay, great. But if our enemies already have better equipment and more troops, I mean, we just can't win a war. We just can't win a war. Let's reduce the size and buy better equipment with the surplus. Let's reform the army and create a smaller but better equipped force. Excellent. I should begin the plans immediately. I can hardly say I welcome this change. Yosef and Vulcan looked at each other. That'll be all for today, then. Good work, everyone. I'd like to extend my thanks for your attendance. Thanks, Peter. The meeting concluded as the sun set over the concrete jungle that was Holsword. Military force reduction. The Maroon Palace has announced the reduction of the military size and a major restructure of the Swordish armed forces. The Ministry of Defense announced that work was immediately begun to adjust the forces and maintain force capability under the new changes. The Chief of the Armed Forces, Vulcan Kruger, has called a major challenge to the integrity of the military, warning that nearby threats are watching the developments closely. The General Staff has voiced concerns about the military application of the changes. The palace assured that national security will not be compromised. Sordland today. Second Kontanen satellite in space. Chairman Leon Milenev addressed the world announcing the second successful satellite launch from Rostanur Air Base, Rostunur, which now reached low Earth orbit. The chairman praised the scientists and the UCOSM that allowed the country to reach space a second time. The functionality of the satellite was confirmed when radio contact was established after deployment. Military. Adequately equipped military. The military is adequately equipped to be operationally effective if mobilized and deployed. Okay, well that's helped a little bit then, I guess, huh? We still have a large reservist pool. So they're not standing military, they are reserves, though. That's better, because no empire in Earth One's history has withstood a standing army. Decision was made to reduce the size of the military. Okay. Trade talks with, let's not do that just yet. I want more stuff. Report, education reforms. The Ministry of Education is reporting that the massive overhaul to the education system is progressing slower than expected. Only a few schools in Sordland will collaborate with the reduction of hours taught in citizenship, Solism, and nationalism subjects. Significant efforts are being made to lessen the political indoctrination in education, but are being met with resistance. Other changes, which were supposed to happen in the curriculum, pedagogical improvements like improved teacher-student relations and the emphasis on critical thinking development, weren't able to start due to lack of workforce and funding. Minister Walder reports little progress, with most schools delaying the transformation on political grounds. If I knew how you made fucking money in this game, this would not have been an issue and I could fund all this stuff. I could put promises forward, but these damned projects, there's no payoff for the investment. We're putting all this fucking money into economical development and we're not seeing any of it. Like, is that the game? Is that honestly the fucking game? Because if that's the game, then at least I would know that, and I would not waste any more goddamn money. Whatever, let's talk to Agnolia. Trade talks with the Prime Minister of Agnolia. Sordland 1's flight from Holsword to Stallport took 3 hours, but went very smoothly. We're about to touch down. David left his seat and came over while Simon was enjoying his newspaper. Looks like we're about to land, Mr. President. I looked outside. I could see Helgeland, the island between Vogsland and Agnolia. So many conflicts over a small piece of land. The island can barely sustain itself without outside help. Well, I mean, it is in a very strategic position. And I wasn't actually thinking the same thing, so let's... yeah, whatever. Well, certainly. If you have Helgeland, it means you're in control of the whole Volgos channel. I suspect it'll be one of the topics that Mr. Van Horten will bring up as a bargaining chip. We must be careful. Helgeland might be under control of Agnolia, but the international community is yet to recognize it. For a good reason, too. Nobody wants to make an enemy of Vogsland, especially because of the support of United Kantana and CSP. Is this going to be a thing? Is this going to be another goddamn deal breaker? Because that just seems like... Well, so Vogsland is going to be the negotiations between Vogsland and Lesbia, right? Right now we have Agnolia and Wayland. And we're going to go with Lesbia over Vogsland. So... I guess it would be okay to do this. We've already pissed them off once, allowing Arcasia to put their airfields inside of our borders. I mean, this is very standoffish and completely unnecessary. But we don't have a good relationship with Vogsland anyway. Whatever. Cross that bridge when we come to it. We should try to look at the bigger picture. Simon folded his newspaper, got up from his seat, and sat right next to us. Aside from the point of Helgeland, we need to be careful with the additional requests. According to the deal that was negotiated so far, they want to sell us their steel for a higher price, and they're requesting easier access to our agricultural market. In return, they're promising cash flow and investments, especially in the Agenland region. It's not hard to guess why. Precisely. Agnolian immigrants in our Agenland region make up a good chunk of the region's economy now. During the initial negotiations, they brought up the topic of immigration many times. The fact that we've relaxed our immigration laws will help tremendously. Let's see if we can shake hands on it. The pilot made an announcement that the descent had started. David and Simon went back to their seats. I took another look outside the window. I could see Stallport, the capital city of Agnolia. The large dockyards of the city and the canals appeared closer as our descent continued. Stallport was certainly a fitting name, due to stall meaning canal. Sure. A couple minutes later, we finally touched down. The plane parked. I took a final look out from the window. The welcoming ceremony from Magnolia was waiting along the red carpet outside. After the guards made their way out, I exited the plane. Sure, wave at the crowd. I waved at the crowd that gathered. There were many camera flashes. I started to make my way downstairs. Prime Minister Van Horten was nowhere in sight. Instead, I was greeted by the Foreign Minister. After shaking hands and a couple photos, I moved to the car where Sergei was waiting to make our way to the office of Prime Minister. Good day, sir. I hope the flight was comfortable. Yes, it was. Thank you, Sergei. I got in the car and made our way through the foreign streets. Our convoy was protected by Sordish and Agnolian guards in their vehicles. We began driving by the highway beside the port and saw dozens of dockyards and ships anchored. Some of the ships and machinery looked old. The city itself looked gray and grim. The buildings had a touch of Rumberg's famous monarchian architecture, with a mixture of Sordish signature domes on the older ones. We were now on the main road to the office of the Prime Minister. Now, looks like they're not too happy to see you, sir. Sergei pointed to the crowd that gathered on both sides of the street. It was a protest. They were shouting and yelling at our convoy. Some of them held signs written in Sordish. Sordland must pay its debts to Agnolia. You know, I never knew Agnolians were so ungrateful. Not everyone sees a great leader like you every day. Thanks. Thanks, Sergei. I don't know. This is kind of dismissive, but I don't know. Is now the time to be humble? Do we care about that shit? They can yell all they want. I know what it is. They're always scared of Sordland's potential, and now they're afraid that a lion leads Sordland. They're afraid of you. Not just that, but you're a man selfless enough that you would pay for your driver's children. Okay, thank you, Sergei. That came back. A true leader, I dare say. Well, you might be a little biased. How's little Anton doing? He's fine, sir. A strong boy. Taken for his namesake, for sure. The convoy started slowing down. We've arrived, sir. The car continued through the gates while the security vehicles went the other way. We finally came to a stop in front of the door. Sergei left the car, opened the car door, and I exited and began walking to the door where dozens of press and the Prime Minister were waiting for me. I saw the Prime Minister much more clearly as I neared the door. He was shorter than I thought. Martin Van Horten. Mr. President, welcome to Agnolia and to the beautiful city of Stalport. I know I've read about him before. That was a while ago. Youngest politician to hold office in Agnolia. Nearest Democratic Union. Staunch promoter of privatization and relaxed immigration. Mutual cooperation agreements with Arcasia and Lesbia. Strongly promoted the free movement of people across Mercopa. Steel production. Alright. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. It's great to be here. He reached out for a handshake. The press surrounding us had been waiting for this moment. Shake hands. We shook hands and smiled at the cameras as the press took pictures. He gestured to the entrance of the 200-year-old Parliament building. This way, please. We entered, and the press followed us inside. I'd like to present you with a gift as a sign of friendship in between our countries. Did we bring a gift? Anyone bring a gift? God damn it. An assistant showed up immediately with a large glass box in her hand. It contained a single parchment inside. This here is one of the first treaties written in between Sordland and Agnolia. Jesus Christ. Just like the one you have prepared with Mr. Vichy before my term. May it mark the renewal of our friendship today as well. I hope so, Mr. Van Horten. Our photos were taken again. I gestured at one of my retainers who was holding our gift to the Prime Minister. Well, this is a thing. Why would we gift one of the original copies of the first Constitution of Sordland? He wouldn't care about this. I guess we'd do a ceremonial sword, but these all seem like terrible gifts. Why would we be doing this? First of all, like this. Why would we be doing this? I guess because it's a treasured item that we'd be showing. Like, it doesn't. I mean, I don't know. Symbolically, wouldn't giving somebody a sword be aggressive? Oh, and especially since it's made out of swordish steel. Okay. Okay, I think I see what's going on there. Because during his term, steel production greatly increased and the volume... Yeah. This would be insulting. This would be insulting. It's got to be this one, then. It has to be this one. All of these seem stupidly insulting. Like, why would we give... Why would they care about one of our founding documents? Like I said, the only reason I could see this gesture being made is that we're entrusting you with one of our priceless relics, right? I think this would be a mistake. Let's do this one. Ah, an excellent copy. I've always wondered what one of the originals looked like. Thank you for this excellent gift. The cameras flashed once again. Let's go to my office. Follow me. I followed him and we entered the office of the Prime Minister. It was a room of wooden minimalist decoration. It was far more modest than I expected. We sat down. He leaned back and made himself comfortable. She's thankfully done with the ceremonies. Jesus Christ, what do you even just say to this stuff? I don't know. Part of me just wants to be all business and get this shit done with, but we're also trying to negotiate. And if there's one thing I've learned so far about talking to the NPCs in this goddamn game, it's that they're fucking touchy. Are you not fond of these ceremonies? I think they're a waste of time, but alas, that is one of our jobs. He got up from his chair and moved over to the bar. There were many varieties of liquor. Would you like a drink, Mr. Rayne? Yeah, I wouldn't mind some vodka. Ah, you know your drink. He poured the drinks and gave me mine before sitting down again. Okay, fine, we'll be friendly. A true gentleman. I can respect that about you, Mr. Horton. This is how we do things in Agnolia, Mr. Rayne. I appreciate the kind words, but flattery alone won't sway me this day. First of all, I would like to say that I've been watching your recent changes to the immigration policy. I'm glad you've decided to keep it relaxed. Immigrants are very important for beneficial economical development, and we believe that very much in Agnolia. It's reassuring to see Sordland move in a more modern direction. Thank you. He took a sip from his vodka. So tell me, Mr. Rayne, is Sordland a reliable trading partner to Agnolia? Well, he's already clearly not our friend, so we're supposed to have a good relationship here. I mean, this is kind of a nothing. Like, we'll play fair as long as you're playing fair. Like, and then this one he's just going to ask for proof, and we're going to have to disappoint him, I feel. We'll try, though. Of course, Mr. Van Horten. You can trust Sordland. Very good. Van Horten leaned back further in contemplation. Change the course of our nations. What the hell does that mean? What the hell's this mean? Fine, let's change the course of our nations. First of all, if we shake hands on it, this agreement is going to be really beneficial for both of us. You should be able to solve your recession in no time with the investment and money flow coming from us. This is, as you know, on top of the reduced tariffs for trade in between our countries. Of course, in return, as discussed between my people and your people before, you will allow us privileged access to your agricultural market. You'll be buying steel from us for a higher price, which is a small price to pay, really. That is the deal. What do you say, Mr. Rayne? So what is the other deal? Like, what other kind of deal are we making here? Because, really, like, what other deal could we make here? I want to know what this does. What are we paying for? Are we paying for the higher steel prices? If I could negotiate that away, I think that would be fine. This doesn't really seem like a beneficial deal for me. Let's see what he'll offer in negotiation. You went through all this effort to come and say no to me? You're throwing away many months of work down the drain. This is a mistake. I can't agree to the higher prices. We prefer to continue with the current steel deal. We believe Sordland has been given an unfair advantage for too long because of the previous agreements. We can no longer accept this, Mr. Rayne. Our people believe that we've been long overshadowed by Sordland. I'm here to fix that, with a beneficial trade for both of us, nonetheless. Is there no room for discussion? We don't want to lose our cooperation with Sordland. Maybe I can agree with the old prices. I'll offer an alternative for the sake of our history together. As you know, Helgeland has long been contested between Agnolia and Volgsland. You know how the international community does not recognize our rightful claim on the island, including Sordland. Wouldn't it be good that Sordland finally announces the recognition of Helgeland as Agnolian territory? If you do that, we'll have a deal. Fine. We'll recognize the island. Excellent. Before we dive into the paperwork for the trade deal, I want to offer you another possibility. Jesus Christ, what is wrong with these fucking people? Can we just get one deal done? What's with all this fucking add-on shit? It's fine, we're in agreement. Oh, but one more thing that's going to screw everything up. I would like to expand on our newly found partnership. We have regional forces like Rumburg that have... We have regional forces, like Rumburg, that has been imposing danger on both our countries. I am of the mind that we must unite. So, by the powers bestowed upon me as Prime Minister of Agnolia, I'm offering a military alliance in between Sordland and Agnolia. What do you think? Absolutely. I accept. That's excellent to hear. Our ministers will go over the details later. Well then, he stood up from his chair. We must continue the official program. As you know, we will pay a visit to our founder's grave for another ceremony. Afterwards, we'll move on to the state dinner. After you. As soon as we left the office, I briefed Simon and David on the outcome of the meeting. The rest of our state trip was full of fake smiles, handshakes, incredibly long ceremonies, and even longer meetings between our ministers and their counterparts. When we came to the end of the trip, the way back was mostly silent. I couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief when we touched down on Wholesword. It was time to discuss the good news. Jesus Christ, at least I got something out of that shit. Successfully negotiated a trade deal and a military alliance. Of course, that trade deal doesn't seem to have done jack shit. There was that promise, right? They were going to send money my way? When does that happen? When do I get some goddamn money in this place? Joint military exercises. The Swordish Armed Forces begun conducting joint military exercises with its allies to improve military coordination. The economy. Recovered trade volume. Recent successful efforts in signing a new comprehensive trade deal has recovered the trade volume of Sordland to pre-recession levels. Well, that's good. Diplomacy. Agnolia priority in agriculture market. Agnolia is entitled to priority access and purchase of any agricultural product with reduced tariffs that was produced in Sordland. Cheaper price steel imports from Agnolia. Sordland is importing steel from Agnolia at half the price compared to other countries. I didn't think that was the deal. I mean, I'm okay with that, but I didn't think we were negotiating for cheaper imports. Anybody else? Alright, news. Sordland and Agnolia enter alliance. Sordland is entering a military alliance with Agnolia along with a new trade deal between the two countries which comes into effect on Tuesday. Agnolian Prime Minister Van Horten told reporters that this alliance is a historical development that will benefit both countries economically and diplomatically. He also said that this will help both countries stay strong against external threats, pointing out both countries' concerns regarding their neighbor, Rumburg. Apart from the military alliance, Sordland will open its agriculture market to Agnolia with the new trade agreement. The deal will also see an increase in trade volume between the two countries, particularly in Agnolian steel. We'll continue to advocate for continued fair trade between our two countries in a relationship that has been extraordinarily beneficial to both Agnolia and Sordland, Van Horten said. He congratulated President Rayne for bringing the two countries closer again. Geopolitico. Sordland recognizes Helgeland as Agnolian territory. With a surprising move, President Rayne has announced that Sordland will recognize Helgeland as Agnolian territory after his visit to the Agnolian Prime Minister Van Horten, sending ripples around the world. Helgeland is an island that has been long disputed in between Agnolia and Vogsland due to its strategic position. Following the Agnolian drilling operation in the previous months, the situation has escalated and the warships got engaged in a standoff over the international waters. Regardless of the return value for this move, one thing is for certain: actively siding with Agnolia will unfortunately mean opposing Vogsland in the current dangerous climate. New alliance in eastern Mercopa. As a result of his recent Agnolian visit, President Rayne and Prime Minister Van Horten have made a joint announcement that Sordland and Agnolia will enter an alliance. The ever-changing political landscape of eastern Mercopa is about to change again. The effects of this alliance in the grander scheme will mean an increased trade and, more importantly, military deterrent against the foes of the two countries. This is especially important following the heightened tensions in between Agnolia and Vogsland. President Rayne's Agnolia visit has certainly been fruitful for Sordland so far. Hegel. Van Horten is playing with fire. Yesterday morning, Chancellor of Vogsland, Hegel, delivered a press conference in Helm about the escalating tensions in Helgeland. During the press release, he said Agnolia's unlawful occupation of the island will not stop us from doing whatever it takes to protect our people living in Helgeland. He has also made comments on Sordland's support for Agnolia in the dispute, heavily criticizing and condemning both President Rayne and Prime Minister Van Horten. Our matters are our own. Sordland is supporting an illegal occupation force which doesn't refrain from ramming their ships into ours. Van Horten is playing with fire, and if he is not careful, he might get burned, said Hegel. Geopolitico will be watching the developments closely. So basically the worst that can happen here is a war that detracts from this going on. Which, whatever. At this fucking point, I don't care. This whole place can burn. I'm just kind of done with the horse shit. We've got an overwhelming amount more troops than Vogsland, but they are also in the pocket of the biggest military force in the world. We are making kind with their enemies, but that's just basically going to lead to a Cold War. And if it's anything like the real world Cold War, it's everyone in between that suffers. We are currently in between them, I'd like to point out. I don't fucking know. I don't care. Let's move on. Trade talks with President of Wayland. Sordland 1 flight to Raklovitz. Sordland 1's flight from Holsord to Raklovitz took approximately 5 hours. Despite heavy turbulence, I managed to sleep a little. Along with Simon and David, we landed at the international airport of the capital city of Wayland. Our aim here was to finalize the trade deal drafted in between Sordland and Wayland. Shortly after our plane landed, the door opened and the sun blinded me for a moment. I stepped outside. I saw the soldiers lined up on either side of a red carpet. There must have been at least 100 soldiers. The marching band started playing, and the soldiers immediately saluted me. I mean, as a civilian, is saluting the soldiers gauche? I feel like it's not really an appropriate, especially not even my own troops, right? But at the same time, would this be seen as insulting? Yeah, fuck, let's not. Proceed to the red carpet without any gestures. At the bottom of the stairs, Victor Smolak was waiting for me next to a military jeep with a few soldiers by his side. There were a few reporters on the side waiting with their cameras. He was a tall man, almost as tall as me. He was wearing large sunglasses, and his attire was a regular suit, contrasting with the military attire of everyone else in the field. Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, known for his commitment to nationalism and socialist characteristics, third president to rule Wayland after departure of the Arcasian troops in the aftermath of their civil war. After the failures of the previous post-war presidents in lifting the country out of recession, he formed his own political party, the Nationalist Party, which combined religious politics with nationalism and socialism. Sounds like a great guy. During his first years, he oppressed and persecuted most opposition, censored the press, and seized assets of the multimillionaires. As a staunch anti-Arcasian, he blamed the Royalists, Liberals, and Democrats for civil war and subsequent Arcasian invasion. Despite being anti-millennialist before the Civil War, he sought out... oh boy, okay. So he is also probably not going to be too happy with what we just did there. Right, so he's absolutely anti-British to the point that he is committing genocide. Fantastic. Mr. President, welcome to Wrocławicz. He immediately motioned for an embrace. We hugged, and many cameras went off at the same time. He turned around for a couple of additional poses. Nice to see you, Mr. President. And now that the pleasantries are done, let's go. We'll take the jeep for a tour. With another tune from the marching band, we boarded the military jeep. He sat in the driver's seat, and I sat next to him. As we started speeding up, the soldiers saluted again. Victor Smolak saluted back. They're not my troops. Do nothing. My security detail and Victor's security detail started following us immediately, along with a team of reporters. We'll first go to the city center to see the opening of a statue. Whose statue? It's mine, of course. We kept making small talk about the flight and the weather until we reached started making our way into the city center. On almost every corner there were reporters taking photos of us. Oddly enough, every single street that we took seemed completely empty. Is Wrocławicz always this empty? I had the locals close down their businesses because of your visit so that we can enjoy the city more. There we are. We arrived at the city center. In the middle of a large plaza there was a covered statue. Lots of people had gathered behind fences and were waving both Sordland and Wayland flags. Victor waved back at them. My people have been very supportive of this visit, Mr. President. I'm sure you're delighted to see. A man came closer to the fence and started yelling at Victor. With my limited knowledge of the Wezek language, I understood the words Victor and murderer. Almost instantaneously, 2 soldiers showed up from behind the man, and he was taken away. Thankfully, the sun is up. Today will be a good day for the reveal. What's going to happen to the man who was protesting you? Should we push that? Should we push that button? Now let's just get this over with. Very well, let's take our places. We took our places in front of the statue. With the drum roll, the statue of Victor Smolak was uncovered. The statue was done pretty well, except that he was made more masculine. He was wearing a cloak and holding a sword in his hand. Excellent statue. Very lifelike. Very lifelike. What do you think? I mean, I'm already kind of impatient here, but it's good. Very lifelike. Glad you appreciate the art behind it. Join me for a walk. I followed him through the streets. At every corner, more and more photos were taken. We stopped in front of a pastry vendor on the street. Give me 2 strudels. The man behind the stand smiled and gave us 2 strudels. I wait for him to pay the street vendor. I waited for him to pay the street vendor. He simply took the 2 strudels and didn't pay for anything. Are you going to pay for it? Yes, I'll pay for it. He handed the money to the street vendor. The cameras flashed again. Afterwards, we walked a short distance to the palace. Passing the gates of the palace, we made our way into the main building made from ivory-colored stones. The old guard towers flanked the magnificent main building from both sides. The inside of the palace was very spacious, with a very large chandelier hanging from the ceiling. Grand staircases made from the same ivory stone and had red carpets on them. On both sides to the upper levels, guards stood with the traditional outfits of the old Wezek kingdoms. We finally reached the office of the President of Wayland. The door closed behind us. The interior boasted gold ornaments on the walls, ivory colors, and various jewels attached to different artifacts of old. As was customary in Wayland, we sat down on the carpet. Really? Now we can talk about our trade deal. Nod. I nodded. But before that, Jesus fucking Christ. Honest to Christ, can we just... Maybe I should just be more impatient. Maybe I should just be more impatient. And just be like, listen, fuckstick. Let's get down to it. He clapped his hands twice. Ring the Keisha. A few assistants immediately entered the room carrying a large ornamented Keisha, the well-known smoking instrument originating from Wayland. They immediately lit it up, and the room was filled with the smell of tobacco. He inhaled the smoke and handed me the Keisha. I don't smoke. Your loss. It's the finest tobacco in the land. He took another puff, filling the room with more smoke. So, Mr. President... that's too long. Can I call you Anton? Sure, Victor. Anton, tell me, what do you really think about Rumburg? Well... I mean, this one is the least committal, so nothing in particular. Like any other country, they have their needs and their own agenda. Yes, they do, but their ambitions are over Wayland and Sordland. We must be careful, Anton. I assure you their time will come. Regardless, I'd rather prevent further conflict in the region. You know as well as I do, Anton, they're coming whether we like it or not. They are the aggressor, not us. For now, I have something else in mind. Listening? Clapped his hands again. Two assistants came in the room with a map of the border regions in between Wayland and Sordland. He pointed at the border. Look, Bloods and their so-called BFF are causing problems for me in this region. I know that they are also a problem for you as well. I will not allow these traitors to exist in my border, so I will hit them with all the might of Wayland. These terrorists need to be destroyed. I call it Operation Bear Trap. What do you want from me? He grinned and lay back on the large pillow behind him. Here's the deal. I'll give you the best trade deal in the region. You'll give me your assistance crushing the terrorists on both our borders. No? Absolutely not. Piss off the people back home? Make my own situation worse by doing this? Yeah, I mean, we could ask for specifics until we just finally reject it. But then this is also a good thing, not meddling in their own interventions, like... Yeah, let's just flat out say no. I'm not going to meddle in Wayland's military interventions. This is not just Wayland's problem. This is also Sordland's problem. These terrorists are doing anything they can to destabilize the region. My spies have infiltrated BFF cells and found caches of KA-74s. We traced them back to Rumburg. This alone justifies my retaliation to protect my country. Worst of all, we also found that similar shipments are going to Sordland, as we did as well. Yes, Anton, you see, this is not just Wayland's problem. Let's take a step back and talk about what you'll get in return. I propose you a no-tariff agreement, co-investment projects, and oil. In return, you'll assist me in destroying the terrorists in my country. Now, what kind of support do you need from me? Can't Wayland handle it by itself? We can, but these vermin are good at hiding. What I want from you in return for all the money and the resources is a joint operation in between our armies against the BFF. I took a moment to think about it. I didn't need a moment because I already knew the answer. We are struggling right now against the threat of Rumburg, and now potentially Vogsland. It's too risky. I'm afraid I can't accept. Oh, wait, Anton, wait. Normally I wouldn't offer anything else, but I like you. Here's my final offer. When the operation starts, with you or without you, there will be stragglers trying to cross into Sordland. We just want you to support the operation even if you do not join. Stop the terrorists from fleeing into your country, and you will have your deal. Simple, isn't it? So what do you think? Stop them from fleeing into my country... What does that mean? This still doesn't stop me from pissing off the Bloodish and the BFF within my own country by doing this. This seems really fucking stupid. Because then I'm just going to cause another flare-up when things are getting smooth. I mean, you know, like, I mean, yeah, we can't do this. No, this is your agenda, not mine. Now that's unfortunate. I thought we could be friends, but you decided to leave Wayland alone by itself. Such a shame. I'm sure a great leader like Sol would have accepted this great offer without a doubt. My assistants will show you the way. Goodbye, Mr. Rayne. Take care of yourself, Victor. I returned to Sordland immediately. I felt relieved to be back in Holsword. Yeah, that didn't, I don't need to be party to genocide, thanks. We failed at negotiating a trade deal with Wayland. It didn't honestly sound like it was going to help us much. They're a weak economy anyway, right? Fragile country. I thought I read about them being a weak economy. Famous for its oil, gold, and diamonds, arguably one of the weakest economies in eastern Mercopa. Yeah, so, I mean, another market would have been nice, but I don't think that's actually that important. Not for the price we'd be paying. I literally just got things settled down in this goddamn country. I don't need to be doing that again. And especially if it involves commitment of military forces that we literally just cut in half. This game is all about too much butter, or too much bread and not enough butter. Okay, we'll end this one here. I'll see you next time.